This is Apple photo editing for the TQG Tuesday night group. On an iPhone, the controls will be at the bottom instead of the sides. So today I'm going to show you how to do some simple editing on your iPhone. After you've taken your picture, you go to your gallery, which if you don't know what that is, it looks like this, and that's on your iPhone or my iPad here. So here's the picture of a quilt that I took. I'm going to zoom way out so you can see I've left plenty of space all around the quilt because I couldn't take it straight on, and so I know I've got this skew. It's also not taken in good sunlight, so it's probably a little darker than it actually should be since these are supposed to be white. So here's how we fix it. We go to the edit button, and now the screen has changed. This is an iPad, so my controls are on either side and the top. But if this were your iPhone, it would look like this, which would be that this would be on the bottom and this would be right above it. We've started off with a picture of that on the slide on the presentation so you could see that. So the first thing I want to do is fix what's called that skew because it's not straight. I go to the crop button, which looks like this. Now that I've touched it, you should see that it has a yellow dot there because that's the active mode. And this is what it looks like, which on your phone would be right above it. This first button is called centering. And if I click that, it will allow me to move the photo around a little bit. We'll do some auto centering. You can see I can move it like this, which is not what I really wanted to do, but I do want you to see that there's a little white dot on my slider switch. That's where the quilt was. And you see it goes back to 0, meaning it's back to the original. Now, these are your skews. So you've got a vertical and a horizontal skew. So look at your quilt and I pick which is the worst off. And right now it looks like it's the horizontal skew. So I'm going to click on the horizontal button. I get my slider. Now watch what happens as I move the slider back and forth. And so I'm working on that, looking at that bottom edge first. So I want it to be as parallel down here as I can. When I think it's there, now I'm going to work on the other direction because I think mine is skewed in 2 directions. You can see I can move it a little bit, maybe a little bit that way. I can go back and forth between the 2 until I think I've got the best product that I can get. And I have some room to move it within the borders. Now I've lost a little bit on this corner. I don't like that. So I'm going to move it back. And when I got it to where I think it's as good as I'm going to get, I'm going to say done. And now that's better, but I still have all this extra stuff. So I'm going to edit again, and I'm going to go back here to crop. I get the yellow dot so it's active. But now I'm going to concentrate on these little cropping corners. And by putting my finger on them, I can move them in until I've got the crop about where I want it. I can go back to skew and move it around some more if I think I need to, but you don't really have to. So when you're done, you say done. If you think you've messed something up, there is a cancel button. There's also this button, which, watch what happens. It flips the quilt mirror image, and this one will rotate your quilt. That was the second button with the little arrow. You can always say done. And notice now if I go back to edit, where done was, I now have revert. So if you really mess up and you want to go back to 0, save it, go back, and then revert it, and it will take it back out to what it was. Watch. Revert to original, and now it's back where it was. So now let's talk about how to adjust the color. I'm back in edit mode, and now you notice the little dot by default always goes to what looks like this little clock, and that is working with the colors. And I have this over here, and I have all of these options that I could play with. You will not need all of these options. And you can work through and try to find the best things. For instance, you can work with the exposure. If I think that's an issue, once again, I'm just moving the slider. You can see the exposure change on my picture here. Then I always have the white dot to go back to. I can work with brilliance, highlights, shadows, contrast, which is often a good one. Always going back to that white dot if I don't like my changes or they're the wrong ones. I have brightness, which lightens up my white quite a bit. Black point adds how black your blacks are. I have saturation of color. I have vibrance. There are just a lot of ways that you can play with your quilt in this manner. And you can even do a markup. There's usually a little pen symbol. And when I click on that, it will tell me it's going to turn off live, which is usually fine for most things. And I can pick my pen, and I can pick my color, and then I can go and use my finger, maybe blue, and I can draw on the quilts, mark it. In all honesty, if you have an iPad, you can do some ideas about how you want to quilt your quilt just like this on your iPad as well.